Welcome to the beautiful sleepy town of Stewart in British Columbia. Up here, just off the inside passage, Stewart has one of Microsoft's handcrafted airports. Welcome to my channel, I'm Avangel, and welcome to my series on Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, and probably more to come, who knows. But either way, right down here, yep, that's it. That's our little aeroplane. It's the Cub Crafters X Cub, one of the beautiful new aircraft in the sim, and a sim that's given a lot of love to tail draggers, especially the Super Cub, and its many versions and variants. Today, we're taking a small flight across to a popular cruise liner stop on the inside passage, Ketchikan, and it's just up the coast, about 50 miles away from us. And we're going to be taking a little flight there. Whilst we go, enjoy a little discussion from an experienced simmer on my thoughts 2 weeks into the release of Flight Simulator 2020, and the improvements I've seen, things they could fix, and where I think this could go in the future. Let's get on board. Now, I learned already after using my controller for the drone camera, which is a wonderful feature. I need to, there we go, free myself up by hitting the yoke, so it detects which controller I'm currently using. A nice little feature that lets you use both at once, but it can be a little interesting. Also, weird that the avionics are on even though my avionics are off. But I'll give them a pass on that one. We've got battery master on, fuel boost pump is on. Set ourselves to our right fuel tank for initial usage. Nav strobes on, and we are going to go for an engine start. And I'm pretty sure I forgot something here, which I'm not sure what it is. Oh yeah, my mixture's completely out, even though it's in on my throttle quadrant. Go figure. And now we have fuel, an important component of flying. But either way, we are good to go now. Boost pumps are off. Engines are looking good. Pressures and temperatures coming up. We'll do a little static run up here just to test the mags. Although I don't think we're using necessarily that on this aircraft. Within limits drop. Okay, so we're going to get ourselves going. We're going to pretend we're talking to our ATC because Microsoft's inbuilt one is... it's not changed since FSX, and, well, that was fun, wasn't it? Stewart traffic, November 403 Sierra X-ray is taxiing for departure on runway 18. Straight out, departure south. Alright, let's get ourselves moving. Once we're in the air, we'll have a bit more discussion about the simulator, its changes, and where it could go, is going, and the beautiful thing. I mean, this is a default airport. Yes, it's a handcrafted one, but look at this. This looks like the Orbeck Stewart. It's amazing. Stewart traffic, November 403 Sierra X-ray departing 18, straight out to the south. We'll back taxi a little bit, then we'll get ourselves going. Now, one thing that is annoying is my sensitivity of my tailwheel steering is mushy at best, terrible at worst. It's like actually trying to ground handle a Cessna 152 on grass, an old one that's been abused by a flight school. It doesn't work. You've kind of got to use your differential braking to get anything to go anywhere. But I am loving this amount of depth of scenery detail. Look at this. The grass and shrubbery by the side of the runway, it's beautiful. As I try and just steer myself a little laterally to see where I'm going, using the various camera angles here. This should be enough back taxi. Now let's try and do a 180-degree turn on the runway here, so we can get ourselves going. Okay, really slow, bit of differential braking. Come on, spin it around. Full throttle to complete the turn. There we go. Okay, so we're good for departure. We've called it out already. Give ourselves a notch of flaps, and you'll see why my sensitivity is so low as soon as we start rolling. Way more obvious with tail draggers than it is with trikes, as it is so hard to keep the nose straight here. The sensitivity is huge. Oh my god, look at that. I feel like a first-time flight student taking off as we get airborne. Yeah, to have any kind of non-ridiculous sensitivity in your rudder pedals, you kinda gotta go really low, which means that ground handling becomes painful at best. Okay, so we're looking good here. As we start to climb out from Stewart, We'll turn right and we'll head up and over the mountains in a moment. As I feel this is a little bit too zoomed in. It's one of the nice things. The camera controls are incredibly easy to adjust in the new sim. In fact, actually kind of lovely. Everything seems a lot more user-friendly than Flight Simulator X and P3D, depending on which one you've used. P3D, of course, in its various versions, 1 through 5, has essentially been FSX. And the core mechanics of the sim, let's say, haven't changed. See, I'm finding this default zoom a little too close. Oh, let's go to the camera button. Let's pull our zoom to... Yeah, that feels more comfortable. Boom. Look at that. Alright, let's get ourselves trimmed for climb. As we're going to have to start heading up this small valley to our right in a second. Okay, so who am I? Who's Avangel? Well, it's a new YouTube channel, as you can probably tell. This is my first video. But I've been flying flight simulators since Flight Sim 98. I started out on the free copy of FS98 that my mother got with her new computer. And that was an old Windows 95 computer, by the way. And I had a little truss joystick with 2 buttons on it. And I'd fly the Sopwith Camel and the Cessna and the other little planes in FS98 around Magus Field in Chicago, not really realizing I could go many other places. Then I dabbled and I faded away. I got back in for 2000 and 2002. I played a little FS 2004, but the journey really started with FSX, like most of us. And I found a world that I truly, truly loved. Something that was absolutely, I mean, look at that, it's breathtaking. My God. I found something that I was truly in love with, something that was a passion. It led me to take flying lessons, which is where I am now, and it led me to a world of freedom. And that's why most flight simmers enjoy The Sims. We get to experience things we never really thought we would have done. My God, apparently also decided my prop pitch was at full flipping. Great work, thank you. It doesn't detect where your controller inputs are at by default unless you move them sometimes. So apparently it decided my pitch for my propeller was all the way back, even though it was meant to be at 100%. Go figure. The Cub X is actually probably one of the most dynamic of the Cubs in the game. We've got the Zlin Savage Ultra, which is a stall monster with big balloon tires on it for good bush landing. We've got the Savage Cub, which is their copy of the Super Cub, kind of a straight copy almost. And then we've got this, which is a very modern plush Cub by Cub Crafters. Look at this thing, it's practically a Mooney. Anyways, now we actually have power. We can climb out and start our journey across towards Ketchikan. We'll be hopping over some of those mountains in a minute, so we'll keep our climb about 75 knots. Seems like a good place to keep ourselves at. And we'll begin the journey. Like I said, where were we? FSX. Played around in the base game like everyone does, and I ended up moving forwards to add-ons and freeware planes. Then the rabbit hole of payware aircraft and payware scenery became a thing. Companies like Orbex changed my world. Because why start in Stewart? Of all places. Well, Stewart and the airports in this region, Bella Bella, Campbell Island, Bella Coola, Terrace, they became my home. I spent thousands of hours flying Cessna 185s, 206s, 207s, the Grum and Goose. So many planes up in this region. And British Columbia, out here in the Pacific Fjords, became my home away from home. I know some of these valleys like the back of my hand. I could take you to a logging camp over that way, back up the valley north of Stewart by memory. It's left at this junction, second on the right. Follow the river, come to the lake. There's a exit on the north shore to a river, and it's on the north shore of that. You get to learn an area flying. It's VFR flying. But one thing that FS 2020 has certainly revolutionized is the quality of that VFR flying. Because now, with Orbex, it was good, but even then, this is breathtaking. I can look out the window of this aircraft in what is essentially default scenery thanks to Bing Maps and the AI systems they brought into place for 2020, and see a whole new rich world. The place I called my home is a vivid tapestry of colors and features and geological occurrences that just blow me away. Alaska disappoints me. I spent a lot of time flying there, and it's kind of tragic. They've managed to get the elevation data on a lot of the waterways and lakes horribly wrong, and you have these massive, should we say, plateau lakes that you probably remember from FSX in the default scenery areas where they've goofed up everything. And it becomes a bit of a challenge. FS 2020 has its problems, yes, and we'll go over those shortly, but on its positives, not only is it gorgeous, the lighting engine is amazing. Thankfully, the root sim, the actual physical simulator behind this, is largely unchanged from FSX, because there wasn't a lot wrong with it. It's a functional working sim engine that, as we've seen from the payware planes for FSX and the like, and P3D, you can do a lot with them. I mean, look at where P3D 5 was before this. Other than the scenery, it was basically at that point. So, the good things. Well, as you've heard from the aircraft and you've seen from its behaviour in turbulence already from the little bits of wind we've seen, you've got head movement in here, which we previously took a plug in. You've got the sound of the aircraft bumping on the runway or on terrain. You've got the sounds of turbulence rattling the aircraft. All things you previously got with AccuFeel. You've got weather that makes Rex and Active Sky look child's play. Scenery that blows Orbex out of the window. And this is the default out-of-the-box simulator with a default out-of-the-box aircraft. Now yes, the GA aircraft are a little bit more systems authentic than the bigger aircraft, where a lot of things don't work. But like that, not everything works in this. You still end up with a simulator that's basically running default aircraft. They are default aircraft. They're not perfect. But you then turn around and look at a simulator that had those features but looks nothing like this. This would have still taken hundreds of dollars, hundreds of pounds to behave this way, and would never even look this good. So it's a thing of beauty, really, as we're really climbing up to the mountains now. We do 4,000 feet. Keep an eye on my EGT, make sure we're leaning ourselves out for the climb appropriately as we come up through the mountain canyons now. Being from England, flying in British Columbia and Alaska has been my escape. It's my freedom, it's a place I truly enjoy, and a world that is nothing like anything I've seen before, other than the Highlands of Scotland, and even then it's on a scale that dwarfs that. But back to the simulator. The physics aren't great on some of the aircraft. Flying a 152 in real life, I can tell you the one in the simulator is really, really, really draggy. Way more draggy than it should be. It feels like you pull off the power and the thing stops in the air. Whereas the Caravan is incredibly slippery and doesn't slow down. And to dwell on the Caravan and the King Air, two aircraft you'll remember from FSX, you'll also remember that when you throttle back to flight idle, both of them would lurch as the turboprop simulation in FSX choked and basically decided it was going from thrust to hell no thrust. This, they seem to have moved the slider or the scale slightly in how they've actually simulated turboprop engines. They're not perfect, they're still basically the same, but zero is no longer quite zero with a lurch. The lurch point comes as you drop into beta, which is something I use quite regularly landing on bush trips in the Caravan, or in places like Saba, St. Bart's, even Lulka, those challenge airports that you can play in the actual menu part of the game. There's so many landing challenges, it's awesome. But those features like using beta to help you slow down and stop on approach, or actually landing at tiny airfields, it really lurches as it drops you in there. So I feel that the actual sim engine of the actual turboprop is the same, but moved slightly backwards. So it gives the impression of being smoother. Congratulations, thank you, Bitching Betty and a Cub. That's something I'm going to take a while to get used to. So far, in terms of add-on aircraft, we have, of course, the Coronado 182 G1000. Just like FSX, the G1000 systems, the glass cockpits in general in 2020, do impact your performance. Flying a steam cage aircraft will have the significant performance increase over the glass, because what is the glass? It's a picture-in-picture display in a video game. That's always got a performance tag assigned to it. Now I feel I need to clarify my system specs. I'm running currently on ultra graphics here in the sim. I'm hitting 30 FPS. For how this looks and handles, this is fine. This is not Overwatch or Counter-Strike. I don't need to have 144 FPS to match my monitor. FreeSync is great on the monitor, of course, and it blends things nicely, but this is a sim. 30 to 60 FPS is fantastic. I'll take it. Absolutely take it. For the fidelity I'm getting and the smoothness, it's more than fine. Now, the other interesting parts we have are that I'm running a Ryzen 7 2700X, 32 gigs of Corsair Vengeance RAM, a RTX 2070 Super Ventus graphics card, and this is on its own 2TB, granted Western Digital black hard drive rather than SSD, but none of my actual components are being maxed out. My internet speed's also 370 meg down, so I meet their pre-release ideal specs by a good margin. Now, I don't have phenomenal performance, but the big difference there is my sim is running at about 40 to 50% of my computer's potential. It isn't using all of it. Something in the sim is locking performance back and holding it within its own system. Maybe there's memory leaks, maybe there are horrific memory leaks, maybe there is some sort of inbuilt safety catch to allow this to function on the Xbox, of course, as they intend. Look at that, my god. We'll have to go into the drone cam shortly and take a pretty look around, but this is a wonderful, wonderful simulator, but it feels like it's hobbled by the potential for console in terms of performance. I don't know, I'm guessing. The SDK is only out for a week, so that is still something people are learning their way around. So far there's a handful of freeware aircraft, including an F-18 with many problems, and a P-51 where you can't click anything in the cockpit. Now, as Caronado have had the SDK and other developers have had that for months, clearly they found their way around the not being able to click cockpit buttons feature. I'm sure the freeware developers will too in time, but for now we're really looking at one aircraft and a bunch of airfields, noted by Orbex and Gaia Studios and a few others. But they are fun, and oh, we're getting some good orographic turbulence right now. Basically, the wind is rushing up this side of the mountain below us, and you can feel it buffeting the aircraft below us. So that's a really nice thing that you just didn't experience before in the simulator. It adds a really, really authentic feel when you're approaching the lee side. Of course, there's a desire for it to get sucked down, so that's something to be very careful of. You can get pulled down and lose altitude as you fly along, as the wind wants to pull the aircraft down, especially in smaller aircraft like this. But we're doing pretty good so far. On our way about 38 nautical miles now to Ketchikan. So, flying at what we're at right now, 6,100 feet. I'm not really looking at my instruments at all. I'm hand flying this, it's a cub. You strap it to your back and go flying. I'm not too worried. We're in VFR over basically uncontrolled airspace. I'm enjoying myself. Now, the sim has a huge amount of potential. I can see companies like Orbex bringing out some of their regions in modified ways to basically cover, especially with their True Earth packages where everything's preloaded essentially but has a similar quality to this. I can see those True Earth packages translating well because there's no more downloading that region. They can also customize it with more airports, more features, more special little things in there, the things you want to see, because Microsoft doesn't. There are a lot of airports that aren't in Orbex's existing regions here. Now, it's expected. Orbex covers way more detail. I'm looking forward to that. But there are places like Unalakleet in Alaska, the home of Flying Wild Alaska, the TV show, doesn't exist. Definitely still exists in real life. But for some reason it doesn't exist. Now, we've seen the multiple spire glitches from the sim. We've also seen the floating lakes, or the basically plateau lakes you're all familiar with from FSX. This appears to be one of those regions fairly safe from it, but it's not perfect, of course. Render distance also could do with being higher. I'm still only hitting 40 FPS now, and the satellite imagery loses a little bit of fidelity. As you can see, there is a stripe from one of the satellite passes. It loses some immersion, but at the same time, you kind of move on pretty quickly. Sometimes you get a bad pass, like this one appears to be a bad pass from the satellite. With it being actively downloaded, this can be fixed. Now, naturally, companies like Orbex with their True Earth packages color correct those. They at least make them match somewhat and blend things in, which does help. But we're getting ourselves a little off track right now, so we're going to turn back on course here. Oh, hello. Engine said no there. I was just knocking my mixture down a touch to see if I could get some more power out of it, but it seemed to drop off a cliff there. The performance. We'll keep ourselves generally steady. We're getting quite a bit of turbulence up here now. 5,500 feet. And it's being a little bumpy. But as I mentioned, I've been around the sim world for a number of years now. I helped develop several aircraft for FSX over at a place called Sim House, if you're familiar with it. I worked with a team over there creating a Ryan Navion and helping to convert Milton Shoop's Grumman Mallard. Not convert, but should we say remake natively in FSX. So if anybody knows that place or those aircraft, you'll know who I am. I was the texture artist that worked on those projects. I know the back end of FSX very well. And I moved on from FSX to P3D. And I enjoyed it vastly, but it was always really just FSX2. It wasn't quite anything dramatically different. Whereas now, we're in a whole new world. And I obviously saying FSX2 feels like a sequel. But I think it also does it more justice that it was only a natural follow-on. Whilst this is essentially the same core engine as FSX, as I mentioned earlier, there's nothing wrong with that. This, however, is a whole new simulator. This, I feel, kicks X-Plane in the ass, it kicks P3D in the ass. It's obviously going to have a lot less usage for professional training, a market that P3D still holds very well, and P3D5 is a phenomenal simulator. With the complexity of add-ons that are available for it for professional training, I think that will always hold it as we head into some cloud now and get more ridge lift. And the satellite imagery is not great here. No, not at all. Either way, we are heading a little bit off course actually, so we'll keep ourselves turning a little bit more northbound here. We shouldn't be too far out. I believe we're about 18 miles away from Ketchikan right now. Shouldn't take us long at all. We'll just skirt by the right side of this peak and we should be good to go. But overall sim performance has been great. Unlike FSX where you battled forever to get good performance, and I'll tell you, flying a Coronado aircraft, for example, in an Orbex region in P3D5 was still a struggle for a computer, and it wasn't until I went up to 32 gigs of RAM on my current system build that I really got good performance, you know, a reliable 60 plus FPS. Yeah, it's been a permanent battle of performance to keep that sim working, and one that I was always griping and fighting about, tweaking and fiddling, and I haven't ever felt the need to even consider tweaking this yet, mostly because the configs are different to what I know and I really don't want to screw it up. Especially with doing a live updated service, I'm sure there are going to be a lot of patches. We had some stability patches in the last couple of days, this week just gone. Those took care of some things like install issues, download issues, some performance issues with nameplates on for multiplayer flying. Nothing really to the core sim though. I think the studio, I want to call them ASBO, but it's not ASBO, it's Asobo? Yes. Are working on those issues and working on correcting them. So it's something I'll give them time for. It's been a couple of weeks now, 2 weeks really since release. I am more than happy. There are plenty of simmers out there who are sitting back going, well, this isn't like my FSX or my FS2004. I'm not switching over yet because I have X amount of add-ons. So do I. Get over yourself. It's worth it. It really is. It's a whole new experience. My controls all work. My systems all work. Now SimConnect was fixed with that patch as well, which means anything that worked with that now ties in. So I could tie into Garmin Pilot on my iPad and see myself in real time. It really does fill the void, and I can wait a couple of months enjoying the beautiful world this game provides. And I'm going to call it a game, yes. I'm not going to get into the argument of game versus simulator because bite me. But it really does provide you a phenomenal experience to tide you over till those new things come. I'm probably going to pick up those the airports from Austria by Orbex, including Zell am See, Innsbruck, Vienna, and do some flying in the mountains of Vienna, or Austria. That sounds great. Maybe I'll meet the Von Trapps on a mountain. But to me, It's worth taking a break from your regular route of flying a 747 with full systems on airline flights just to experience visceral GA flying. The selection of GA planes in this are amazing. There's 3 separate Cubs, there's 152s, 172s, with Coronado's 182, you've got that as well for a faster cruise. You've got Diamonds, you've got Cirrus, you've got a Baron. Although thankfully, finally the Baron is the correct scale, as this is getting very choppy with the lift here. The Baron is finally the correct scale. Thank you, Microsoft. As is the Caravan. Previously, Microsoft did screw the scale up a little bit on those default aircraft, that your pilot was always somehow much, much smaller than the aircraft appeared. Like, your pilot in the Baron looked like they were piloting a Queen Air. It was kind of interesting in terms of scaling that they managed to screw that up. We should be looking actually at the ridgeline ahead of us. Ketchikan should be just beyond that, so we're not too far away now. But overall, everything is just a lot more polished. FSX felt incomplete at the time of release, but it was also designed for a different generation of computers. FSX was designed for a time when Microsoft expected computers to simply keep getting bigger. It was the time of single-core computing where single cores were getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and right as FSX was coming out, the split to multi-core computing happened, and FSX was a sim designed to run on a single big core. So even with optimizations and changes and modifications and P3D becoming 64-bit, it was never really designed for modern computers. This is the way we compute now. So it's always been a broken, botched system that was never truly working, as we're back in good terrain now. It is a whole different game. It spreads the load well, it scales beautifully. Low-end systems that can run this look great. The way that modern games scale their graphics is phenomenal, and this truly does it well. It's a not too drastic difference. Now, yeah, you'll get less autogen at range, you'll get less quality of texture at range, the texture may be lower res, but the whole experience is still beautiful. As I think I'm incorrect about the location of Ketchikan. No, we're 21 miles away. Estimated time 13 minutes. So, you know what? We'll be back when we're a little bit closer. I think that's probably a good idea. Hey guys, so we're back now. We're cruising over the last of the fjords before we arrive here at Ketchikan. We'll start our descent shortly as we get over this latest ridge. Not the nicest patch of terrain here, but I guess they fill in the blanks where they can and with whatever they have. Resolution was not as high, I suppose, on the data from this area, but like I said, when we get add-on scenery for areas like that, it can fix it, but you never know. It's one of those downsides of satellite imagery versus texture is it will always kind of not be perfect, because satellites are imperfect due to weather and cloud cover and all those factors like that. So we're already tuned to Unicom here for Ketchikan, so we're going to announce our presence. Remember 403 Sierra X-ray, Ketchikan traffic, inbound for landing, currently 3.5 kilometers due east. So we're going to bring back the throttle here, as we get some big terrain lift coming off us here. Airport should be just below us down there, and we're pretty high up now. Oh man, this does look much, much worse, but I think we get a nice swath of prettier scenery as we arrive over the ridgeline here and get lower. Should not be too far away now. Should be able to drop down in here. I believe Ketchikan also has an old railway that runs up through the hills towards Whitehorse and Canada. If this is the airport I'm thinking of, including a steam train that climbs the mountain pass. So we should see the airfield below us on the right any moment now. If it's where I'm thinking it is, it might be directly below us. Although I severely doubt that. It should be down here. Probably just out of sight, so we'll idle the throttle for now. And we do have car beat in this aircraft, so we're going to pop that on whilst we're idle throttle. I'm thinking I'm about to fly straight over it, so there we are. There's the runway. This looks nothing like the Ketchikan I was expecting. I might be confusing this with another location, but I'm pretty positive Ketchikan is a stop on the cruise calendar. But this looks nothing like the Ketchikan I'm aware of. Because that appears to be our airport. That is not the airport I thought it was. Great work for a first video. Confusing my airports. We're currently running at about 2,600 feet, so we're still descending pretty heftily. We're not going to be able to do anything other than left traffic, so we'll just cross over to the far side of the valley here, keep descending, and set up for a left pattern for... we're looking at fairly calm winds right now, so we'll probably go for, I think, 6. No, 24. We'll take 24. But it is beautiful down here. Look at this. Man, that is gorgeous. So there's the airport. We'll turn around and set up for 24. Once we're down a little bit lower, coming through 2,000 feet. Put our mixture and prop back to full. We'll continue this way a little bit before turning around, entering left base. Should be nice and simple for us. It might not be the right airport. I may have completely fluffed this up and be thinking of a whole different one. In fact, if you know which one I mean, put it in the comments. I know this is my first video on this channel, and you'll be like, who the crap is this girl? Who the hell is she? Why should we comment? Just treat me like an idiot. It's great. It's fun. You'll enjoy it. I promise. Everybody else does. Ketchikan traffic, 03 Sierra X-ray, entering left downwind for 24, full stop. Okay, we're looking good right now. Let's put the carb heat back in. We don't need that anymore. No, we'll keep it for now. We're still idle throttle while we're trying to drop altitude. Looking very pretty. The lake just ahead of us. This will be a fairly tight base to final because of that hill, but not a big deal. If we're coming straight in, we're going to come through that little approach valley ahead of us. Probably why they put the airport here. Speed's getting low now. He's put the throttle in, so let's carb it back out. Oh, still a little choppy. Okay. There's the threshold. I will say, general biggest thing I've noticed with the sim has been judging distances a lot better. The scale of things, the scale of trees, the scale of terrain, buildings, runways, everything feels a little bit more relatable. And if you've flown in real life, or if you're used to seeing things in a real world, you'll actually tend to notice things a little better. 03 Sierra X-ray, Ketchikan traffic, turning left base, 24, final? Not final, full stop. Well, either way, they get the impression. There's no one really listening.
500.
I'm well aware, thank you, Betty. Ketchikan traffic, 03 Sierra X-ray, turning final, 24, full stop landing. There we go, rolling it on in. And this feels like landing a real aeroplane. This really does. Look at this. My God. Little farm blowers, a little bit of a village. This feels like I'm actually bringing a real aeroplane into a strip here in Alaska. I'm coming in a little quickly, but don't judge me. We'll correct that in a second. We'll just help her by plopping her down. Like that. I floated a long way, but I didn't really have the right approach that I wanted. And it does not like this. Takes a long way to stop. We're absolutely fine. So we'll get ourselves turned around. We'll need a bit of throttle for that. Quite a bit of throttle, I should probably estimate. There we go. Touch of tail wheel. Touch of throttle to stand on the toe brake, because once again it's being a pig. There we go. Spin her around. Right round like a record. And we'll taxi her back. So, hopefully you've enjoyed this first flight with me. And hopefully you'll come back for more in the future. I hope to see you guys soon. Even though this was not the airport I intended it to be, hopefully I at least provided some entertainment, interest, information and news. And that what I told you was interesting. So stick around. Subscribe. Drop a like if you want to. That's what YouTubers say, isn't it? And please do come back. That's what matters more. Say something in the comments. Love to hear from you guys. Thanks for watching. Bye.